Welcome to the Explainer. Okay, let's dive right into this. If you're a prospective immigration candidate for Canada, well, you already know that proving your language proficiency is a massive step in your journey. You know you need an approved French test, but right now, you're probably staring at your screen, kind of paralyzed by one very specific choice. You're trying to figure out which exam format actually fits your goals and, more importantly, your personal test-taking style. So today, we're going to break down the mechanics of the two absolute giants in this space, TCF Canada and TEF Canada. We're going to look at the hard data, compare the structures, and help you build a real preparation plan based on evidence, not just random internet rumors.
So, what does this all mean? It's the million-dollar question, right? TCF Canada or TEF Canada? Which one should you actually take? Look, it's completely natural to feel anxious about this choice. Your future plans are basically riding on these scores, and you want to give yourself every possible advantage. But hey, the goal of our explainer today isn't to just tell you what to do. Nope. It's to give you the exact diagnostic tools and comparative data you need to find the absolute best fit for your unique brain and your specific communication style.
But first things first, we really need to bust a massive myth that spreads like wildfire on forums all over the internet. There is absolutely no universally easier exam. No way. Neither test is a magic ticket, neither is faster to pass, and neither guarantees a higher score. Here is the undeniable truth. Both of these exams are fully approved by Immigration, Refugees and Citizenship Canada, or IRCC. Both of them rigorously assess all 4 language skills: speaking, listening, reading, and writing. Ultimately, immigration programs interpret your results through NCLC levels, and a strong average just isn't going to cut it when a pathway requires a minimum score in every single skill.
And hey, I want you to keep this number in mind. 2. Just the number 2. Why? Because your exam results are generally valid for exactly 2 years. This means your testing timeline, when you take the test and when you submit your application, is just as crucial as your final score. You absolutely have to plan your test date so that your results remain valid throughout your entire immigration processing window.
Now, what's really interesting about this is that when we look at the architectural differences between the two exams from a distance, they look incredibly similar, don't they? They both have listening, reading, writing, and speaking sections. But as you look closer at the number of questions, the timing, and the specific tasks required, you realize the unique terrain of each test is actually quite different. The better choice for you is simply the exam whose format you deeply understand, can practice consistently, and can actually perform under when that clock is ticking down.
All right, let's jump straight into Section 1, the TCF Canada experience.
If you end up choosing the TCF path, you absolutely need to understand its specific rhythm and pacing. See, the TCF is highly structured and relies on a very clear progression. In the comprehension phases, the TCF Canada throws 39 listening questions at you to conquer in 35 minutes and then 39 reading questions to knock out in 60 minutes. But keep in mind, and this is absolutely crucial, the listening section is one pass only. That means you hear the audio exactly once and you just have to make your choice. You gotta be decisive and keep moving.
Now, the writing section is where the TCF really shows its personality. You have 60 minutes total, but you must complete 3 entirely different tasks. And here's the kicker. They have strictly defined word ranges. Task 1 demands 60 to 120 words. Task 2 needs 120 to 150 words. And Task 3 requires 120 to 180 words. So you're writing in short, precise bursts of text, constantly shifting gears between 3 very different prompts.
Then we have the speaking test. It's a fast-paced 12-minute face-to-face sprint consisting of 3 distinct tasks. It starts off pretty gently with a structured interview. Then bam, it shifts to an information-seeking interaction where you actually get 2 minutes to prepare. Finally, it culminates in a task where you must express and support a point of view with 0 prep time. None. It's dynamic, it shifts rapidly, and it really tests your ability to pivot on the spot.
Okay, moving right along to Section 2, the TEF Canada experience.
We're going to pivot symmetrically here to give the TEF equal analytical weight. If the TCF is a series of sprints, while the TEF is more like a marathon of sustained engagement, let's look at the hard numbers. The TEF Canada slightly bumps up the volume in the comprehension sections. You're facing 40 listening questions with 40 minutes on the clock and 40 reading questions over 60 minutes. Again, that strict one-pass listening rule applies here, but you do get just a fraction more time overall for the listening section compared to the TCF.
In the writing section, TEF also gives you 60 minutes, but it only demands 2 tasks instead of 3. However, the workload is a completely different beast. Section A asks you to continue a short article using at least 80 words. Then comes Section B, which requires you to express and justify a point of view using at least 200 words. You see the difference?
You're developing longer, sustained arguments here rather than trying to hit multiple short targets. For the TEF speaking section, it actually gives you a bit more time, 15 minutes in total, but it relies entirely on immersive role plays. First, you have a role play focused on obtaining information, and second, a role play where you're actively arguing to convince the examiner of something. There's no standard interview here. You're literally stepping into a scenario and sustaining a persuasive character the whole time.
And this brilliantly illustrates the fork in the road for candidates. On the writing side, TCF requires 3 short tasks with very strict upper and lower limits. You can't write too little, but you also definitely can't write too much. On the flip side, TEF requires only 2 sections, but it asks for much longer, sustained arguments. It has minimum word counts, but no strict maximum. Caps. You gotta ask yourself, are you a sprinter or are you a marathon runner?
The exact same divide applies to speaking, too. TCF guides you from a standard interview straight into structured opinions. It feels very much like a traditional test environment. But TEF throws you right into immersive role plays where you have to persuade and convince. So ask yourself right now, which interaction style actually feels more natural to your personality? Do you like answering direct questions, or do you enjoy stepping into a scenario and really persuading someone?
Let's bring this to life in Section 3, Real Candidate Profiles.
To move this from, abstract formats to real-world decisions, let's introduce a few candidate avatars. These are practical case studies that'll help anchor these concepts to actual test-taking styles. See which of these candidates you relate to the most. Meet Maya and Daniel. Maya communicates incredibly well in standard interviews. She likes moving through several shorter writing tasks, crossing them off her list. When she does timed practice, she hits those strict TCF-style word limits very consistently. So for Maya, TCF is the clear winner. Daniel, on the other hand, is a natural debater. He enjoys role play, he loves sustaining a persuasive argument, and he absolutely thrives on that 200-word opinion task. Given Daniel's strengths, the TEF is for sure the much better fit.
So, the really crucial point here is that sometimes the test format isn't actually the deciding factor at all. Take Sarah. She's been endlessly scrolling forums, she's super anxious and desperately searching for that mythical, easier exam. But her diagnostic test reveals that listening is just a real weakness for her across both formats. For Sarah, swapping tests isn't going to help. Her real next step is targeted skill development. Then there's Omar. He performs equally well on TCF and TEF sample tasks. For him, the choice comes down to pure logistics. Which approved local center has a suitable test date that fits his timeline? And honestly, local availability is a highly legitimate deciding factor.
This brings us to Section 4, your decision checklist.
So we've covered the rules, the structures, and the personalities. Now I want to equip you with a concrete framework so you can make your choice before you hand over any registration fees. Here are the 5 crucial diagnostic questions you absolutely must ask yourself. 1. Which speaking interaction feels more natural to you, interviews or role plays? 2. Which writing structure can you complete accurately within a strict 1-hour limit? 3. What happens to your comprehension when you practice one-pass listening without the luxury of rewinding? 4. What is your exact application timeline and which local center's dates actually fit it? And 5. What preparation resources and reliable feedback can you consistently access in the months leading up to your test?
I really want you to remember this core philosophy from our explainer today. Choose the exam through evidence, not mythology. Know the format, know your weak skill, and build a plan you can actually follow. Please do not make a massive decision that affects your future based on some random rumor someone posted online. Use data from your own time practice, review your errors by skill, and let your actual tangible performance dictate your path.
And honestly, that is exactly where SEAL Language Academy comes in. They take a diagnostic-first, skill-focused approach where you can literally test drive original sample tasks from both formats under timed conditions before you ever commit. So I'm going to leave you with this. Are you going to let a random internet forum decide the fate of your Canadian dream, or will you let your own data light the path? Thanks so much for joining me on The Explainer. Start practicing, and we'll see you next time.